In the heart of the night, this world will burn bright. We will set it alight. In the heart of the night, in the heart of the night, this world will burn bright. We will set it alight. In the heart of the night.
Hello everyone, I am Anthropomantic Fiend, and I do horror-related things on the internet. First of all, the elephant in the room, this hat that I'm wearing. This is not the hat that I'm going to be wearing all December. I can't be away from my other hat for that long, but this is the one actual Christmas movie review that I'm doing this month, so I thought I might as well. This is the Saturday after I uploaded the very first of my Anthro and the Apocalypse videos, and already the feedback on those has been amazing. I even got a response from the composers, Roddy Hart and Tommy Riley, who wrote the music for Anna and the Apocalypse, which blew me away. Huge thank you to everyone who's given me positive feedback on that. I'm so happy that that has turned out well. Special thank you to Hobbs Horror, who just nominated me for Horror Tuber of the Month. Please go and vote. It doesn't have to be for me. Everybody who's been nominated is awesome, and just check out Hobbs. I will link that video below. Finally, not related to me whatsoever, the YouTube channel Chiller Thriller, which is an amazing channel, is doing a series of horror advent calendar videos this year, reviewing a Christmas horror movie from the 1st of December to Christmas Eve. She did a review of Anna and the Apocalypse, which, if it isn't abundantly clear at this point, is one of my favorite movies ever. Her channel in general is criminally underrated. The amount of production value and quality and work that she's clearly put into what she's doing is much superior to what I've been doing, but her subscriber count is not even to 100 at this point, which is not okay at all. Please go subscribe to her, check out all her videos. She has a fantastic channel. So I will link her Anna and the Apocalypse review below, but check out everything she's done. She's really good. With all of that out of the way, today I am going to be reviewing Silent Night, Bloody Night. This is a movie that came out in 1972. It stars a lot of people, but the names that stuck out to me were Patrick O'Neill, James Patterson, and John Carradine especially. I predominantly know him because he played Count Dracula in some of the later Universal monster movies. He also had a bit part in Bride of Frankenstein. He did a lot of stuff with Universal, then went on to do movies like The Howling and House of the Long Shadows, and this movie later in his career. Great actor. This movie gives us this little bit of backstory on this creepy old house in which a tragedy took place on Christmas Eve. Many years later, a killer has escaped from the nearby asylum and is stalking people around that house during the festive season. The quality on this box set, because this is the last of my reviews of this box set. I saved this one movie for this month, and I'm finally gonna rank all of these later this month, but I can't watch Christmas movies when it's not Christmas unless it's Anna and the Apocalypse, so I decided to save this one for this month. But anyway, in this box set, the quality of the movie is terrible. It's really grainy and stuff, and the audio quality is really fuzzy. In the shadowier scenes, it's really bad. You can see maybe a sliver of somebody's head moving around, but you basically can't see anything, and it's not okay. It's really bad. From what I understand, there are restored versions of this movie out there somewhere, which I might want to look into. And in some scenes, I think the grain and the decrepit nature of the print actually helps to create a sense of atmosphere, particularly in the eerie sepia flashback sequences. It really adds this layer of grime and dinginess that I like. But in the other scenes, it's just so bad that it's actually hurting the storytelling, and that I can't see what's happening. So, not good. Story-wise, this movie is really confusing anyway. That might have something to do with how crappy the print is, but mostly the story is just really confusing. The movie literally opens with some narration and then a man running out of a building on fire. It was claimed to be an accident. I'm sure you can be caught on fire accidentally, but in that kind of dramatic way, I kind of doubt it. But again, this is a horror movie, so I'm obviously assuming the worst and assuming that everyone's a murderer. We get Patrick O'Neill's character, who I believe is named Carter, and one of his female acquaintances going to this creepy old house and staying there. He's there on business of some kind. I forget what exactly, but he has business in this old town, and everybody's like, dude, don't stay in this freaking creepy old house. Some really bad stuff went down there. And he's like, yeah, I'm gonna stay there anyway. The relationship between him and his female acquaintance was not clear to me at all, just because they look so different age-wise. He looks like a much older guy, and this girl looks significantly younger than him, so I kind of presumed that she was his daughter, which turns out really not to be true when they're preparing for a night of lovemaking. I was just like, oh, okay, that was kind of a curveball for me, but they don't make the relationship between the two clear, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It just really weirded me out, because they don't look like they should be in a relationship together, and maybe they shouldn't be, even within the context of the story. I don't know. It was weird. In one of the scenes, the killer uses this very sort of Christian iconography. There's a cross that he puts in someone's hand, and he opens up this Bible, and it adds to this almost sort of puritanical feeling that we kind of get off of this killer. And there's just this very sort of bleak, somber, funereal vibe throughout the movie that really adds to. It's not this kind of festive, bright, cheerful, commercial Christmas that this movie is tapping into. It's this really bleak, biblical feeling that is not fun in the slightest, but it's a really cool, albeit very depressing atmosphere that it taps into, and I appreciate that. This old mansion was owned by a Mr. Butler. He had a daughter named Mary Ann, and they both went through some horrible stuff. Their house was turned into an asylum at some point. Let's just say nothing turned out great for anyone at all. The things that went down there set up the killer's backstory, I think. The flashback sequences that we get of Mr. Butler and Mary Ann are shot in sepia, as I mentioned before, and they are the most effectively twisted and creepy parts in the movie. It's heartbreaking, it's sad, it's creepy, it's so suspenseful, and it is definitely the most effective part of the movie for me. When we get to the end of the movie, I'm still not sure who the killer is, to be honest. That's not a spoiler, I just don't know. I think they are trying to infer who the killer is, but it didn't come across to me. So I think that is just bad storytelling on the movie's part. I'm sorry. Might also have something to do with the crappy print. The cinematography, the costumes, the sets in general are good, but nothing special. The film has a strange, really haunting atmosphere that I like to it, though. And there are certain set pieces, like there's a funeral that we see, and the inside of the Butler house is beautiful. There are just some shots of nature that's being driven by, and it has this very depressing winter atmosphere to it that I really did appreciate. But it doesn't feel particularly polished either. It has a very grindhouse feeling in some ways that are beneficial to the movie, and in other ways that I feel are very detrimental to the movie. They feel sloppy in places. But there's also kind of a touch of giallo to this movie that I really enjoyed. Throughout the movie, we basically just see the kill scenes and the scenes of the killer moving around doing stuff from the POV of the killer with these black gloves, you know, doing stuff. And I've always loved that element of giallo. It's just an image that is really evocative to me, and I don't know why exactly, but I do appreciate just that look and that approach, and this movie is clearly very giallo influenced in that regard, and I liked that. The score of this movie is actually really good. Most of it isn't terribly memorable to me, but there is a minor key version of Silent Night that they play both in the opening credits and during my favorite scene in the movie. When I was younger, I actually used to sit at the piano and transpose Christmas songs to minor keys, which my mom reminded me of as I was watching the movie. Beautiful, somber rendition of Silent Night that I thought was really well utilized in the movie. And there's a little creepy piano theme that they bring back throughout the movie I can't actually recall it in my head now. I remember it being really good, and I love just little creepy, chimey pieces that they bring back throughout movies. Aside from just Silent Night, I think it was the most memorable piece of music in the movie and really well used as kind of a creepy theme to bring back during specific scenes, almost like a Suspiria theme or a Halloween theme or a Jaws theme. There are a few little bits of pipe organ that we hear in the movie. Those are in-scene music that we hear a bit at the beginning of the movie, and then a little later when Patrick O'Neill's character is playing the organ in the Butler house. Even when they're trying to play something cheery, it just adds to this church-like funereal atmosphere that the movie has. It just permeates everything that's happening, even when it's supposed to be a happy scene between characters. It just feels so incredibly miserable. And speaking of which, in the flashback sequence, we get the most depressing version of For He's a Jolly Good Fellow that I've ever heard in my entire life. Mostly because all of the characters are incredibly drunk when they're doing it and so dissonant and ugh. But also because the person that they're toasting hates all of them and they're actually being really cruel to him and ruining his life, and he's just sitting there in a daze and miserable. I don't have a lot to say about the characters. I didn't connect with anybody really, unfortunately. I liked seeing John Carradine. Seeing him in any movie makes me happy, even if he doesn't get to do much, but it also makes me kind of sad because he doesn't get to do much. His character is mute, so he doesn't even really get to talk. He's just kind of there to keep the minutes at this business meeting and then to gesture and help other characters later, which really isn't fair to him as an actor. Not to say that he couldn't effectively play a mute role, and I think he does to some extent. They just don't give him enough things to do. We get a classic whispery killer voice. I do enjoy a classic creepy whispery killer voice, and I did like the one in this movie. Logically, don't know why you would ever trust that person, but I didn't really care. I liked the creepy whispery killer voice. We have the young Mr. Butler that we meet in this movie, played by James Patterson. He is walking around in black gloves. He's clearly meant to be the red herring of the film. He's kind of creepy and you're not sure whether you trust him or not, but they play that up so much that you're like, he can't be the killer, can he? But throughout the movie, I legitimately wasn't sure. I think they play with your expectations well, but the fact that I still don't know who the killer was at the end of the movie, yeah, they played with my expectations and then there was no payoff, so bleh. But there are also a lot of red herrings in this movie. There are so many characters wearing black gloves. Because it's winter, I thought that was a good setup, so it's just not like there's a few characters wearing black gloves and they must be this giallo slasher villain. But I'm still confused, so you didn't pay that off well. Either that or the print just sucks that much. Another logic thing that confused me and delighted me is that the sheriff's wearing sunglasses at night in one scene. Based on things that transpire later in the movie, I know why he was wearing them in terms of plot device, but logically it's still especially dumb because he needed to see what the hell he was doing, and those sunglasses were not helping him. I'm totally that edgy, gothy person who would wear sunglasses at night just because they looked cool, but that guy's the sheriff. He needs to see what he's doing, and those sunglasses were not helping him. General consensus on this movie is it was not great. I know a lot of people talk about this one as one of those classic early slashers and one of the early Christmas slashers, Christmas horror movies that they really like. It did not do a lot for me. A lot of that is due to the print being so unclear and confusing, but I also think the storytelling was really sloppy. I still don't know what the hell happened by the end of the movie. Maybe I just wasn't paying enough attention, but I really don't think so. I'm just very lost. But this movie does have a beautiful score, some good sets, some serviceable actors who deserved better parts or more screen time, and there's just this overall atmosphere of winter and gloom and seasonal depression, if you will, that I think is really, really well done and comes across really well. So I do think this is worth at least one watch. It's not one that I'm going to be revisiting often, but I might pull it out again once in a while during the Christmas season. It was a decent movie, if not especially well made. It had some things to offer. Before I get into the spoilers, I have one warning. If you don't want to see dogs die, there's a dog that dies in this movie. So yeah, that is my spoiler-free review of Silent Night, Bloody Night. Here are the spoilers. My favorite thing in this movie is that it kind of pulls a psycho Janet Leigh moment on you, in that it sets up Patrick O'Neill and his love interest as the main characters of the story. They go to stay in this creepy old house, and we've been following them this whole time. They are our heroes. They are about to get into their night of lovemaking that I did not need to see that much of, and the killer immediately breaks into the room and kills them with an axe, and it's pretty damn visceral and bloody. And they do build up the fact that the killer is in the house really well throughout them being there. So in some ways you kind of are already expecting them to die, but they're also so set up as the main characters that you really don't know at this point. So I thought that kill, and especially the build up to that kill, was really, really good. The reason the sheriff was wearing sunglasses is because he freaking dies and drops them, and a character needs to find them later, which is a dumb reason for him to be wearing sunglasses at night. It's kind of the same thing as having Johnny randomly wearing these gloves that he doesn't need to be wearing in Night of the Living Dead, even though they kind of look cool. I don't think that would have been a stylistic choice for that character, but it helps you identify him when he's a zombie later. Same idea with these sunglasses. It just ties you back to who died at that place then, but it's really dumb because he should not have been wearing sunglasses at night. The character who dies after that is taken into the house and has a light shown in her face by the whispery killer person, and he's like, "Don't be afraid, I'm here to help you. Take my hand." And he extends a hand, and she then finds out that it's actually somebody else's severed hand. She drops it and screams and gets axed. I love the classic take my hand bit where someone offers you a hand and it turns out not to be theirs, or someone's holding onto somebody's hand in the dark and it actually turns out to be a corpse's hand or a monster's hand. Love that stuff. But probably due to the print, it's so dark that I couldn't tell what was happening. And that joke or shock moment or gag or whatever you want to call it barely even registered with me. So, passing grade for that, but only barely. At the very end of the movie, young Mr. Butler and this character that's our other heroine's father, and I haven't even mentioned her because I barely remember who she's supposed to be. I kind of cared about her, but I didn't know that much about her, and I don't know, I just didn't connect with any of these characters. But her dad and this guy who she might be in a relationship with, Mr. Butler, go head to head in this house, and they both think that the other one's the killer, at least I think so. And they have the quickest shootout ever, and that they both shoot each other right at the same time and instantly die. And then the actual killer comes down the stairs and is whispering creepily to this girl who he apparently thinks is Marianne, which is weird because he's been telling everybody else on the phone that he is Marianne. Don't even know what's going on with him. She shoots him, and that's the end of the movie. I think that was meant to be the old man Butler who we think is dead. At least that's kind of what I was getting from the flashback stuff. But that did not come across at all, because there's not any kind of face reveal with the killer, and they never, like, explain it at the end. I can only just surmise that that's who it was meant to be, but they never really explain how he survived or anything like that. It's just confusing storytelling, and not good, no. I'm kind of frustrated by this movie. The storytelling is confusing and sloppy, but it has good things going for it, and I do recommend watching it at least once. That is my review of Silent Night, Bloody Night. Thank you for watching my video, and hopefully I will see you in another one. Bye. Is the review where I make fun of someone wearing sunglasses at night the only one where I actually forget to wear my freaking sunglasses? and it's dark outside. Opportunity missed.